Now, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to welcome you back to our today's discussion. And first of all, before I talk about today's theme, I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you who had an opportunity to watch our video and later on went ahead to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I also want to take this opportunity to appreciate the comments that you have given me, and I've received even some calls from people who wanted me to address some issue. So before I take you to today's discussion, I want to first of all mention that this is just the beginning, but going forward we are going to give you the best of critical analysis of our politics in the country. And number two, before I start today's discussion, I want to request you kindly, if you are watching our video for the first time, subscribe to our YouTube channel and give our video a thumb up so that we can be able to assess and continue with our discussion in the best way possible. In today's discussion, I'm going to look at something totally different. This is because of the request that I've gotten from you by viewers, and therefore I'm here to address this issue with you. Now, there's a lot of misunderstanding on the political policies and manifestos and slogan being used out there by politicians. And one of the things that has really confused the society or the country at large is the bottom-up economy. What is it all about? You remember some time back we have had politicians allied to Deputy President William Samoei Ruto who have been unable completely to define what is bottom-up economy. So today I want to start by looking at what is bottom-up economy, and by the end of this analysis I'll give you a brief statement based on the advantages and disadvantages of bottom-up economy, and then the final decision lies with you on the direction that you want to take, because we have said it is all about bringing civic awareness, understanding our politics, and if possible, carrying out a proper and critical analysis of the political activities that are going on in our country. Now, the best way to define the bottom-up economy is by contrasting it with the trickle-down economics. Trickle-down economic argues that if you are an economist, or if you grow the economy, even if it favors the top one, that 1% at the top, including bigger companies and the people at the helm of leadership, the expectation is that the benefit will ultimately flow to the lowest part, leading to economic growth and employment in general economy. Bottom-up is where you create economic rules that focus on the bottom end in terms of common citizen. So when we talk about a bottom-up economy, we want to say it is about creating economic rules that focus on the bottom end in terms of a common citizen. The bottom-up approach it has very little to do with government or politicians providing goodies to the public. It is all about creating an enabling environment for the small and medium enterprises to thrive in a nation that is facing economic challenges. This includes coming up with economic policies that decriminalize small traders and reduces the sector or reduces the burden of taxation, especially the SMEs, allowing small businesses, especially the millions in the informal sector, to access cheap credit from financial institutions. Now, while the bottom-up approach is ideal, I want to be very categorical that it will take some time before it takes shapes, especially in third world countries. For it to work, there is need to change the mindset of the people. I'll tell you why. And when I'll be talking about this, I'll take you back to Tanzania and talk about the Ujamaa Declaration, which is a blueprint or a duplicate of this that is called bottom-up economy. So as I was saying, while the bottom-up approach is ideal, it will take a lot of time, especially in a capitalist country like Kenya, to work or to take shape. This is because for it to work, there's need to change the mindset of the people, and especially the technocrats or the experts that are holding the demanding sources of the economy. I'm talking about the modern sector. I'm talking about the industries. I'm talking about the banks, people who are in charge of this institution. Those are the guys whose views determine the government policy to a large extent, and additionally, because they are the one who describes the Kenya economy, they are also the one who are to receive credit for the drawing of the country's economy. So when you look at the bottom-up pyramid, you realize that it comprises of largely informal sector. And when we talk about informal sector, this informal sector are people who do not have security to access credit. These are people that the government need to underwrite in terms of loans so that banks can give them loans without fearing the risk of defaulting those loans. So the bottom-up approach cannot be implemented in a country where there is high literacy level, where there is high inequality. The gap between the rich and the poor is too big that you can't imagine in our country. Those are the facts. This bottom-up economy will fail because it will lack the skills to even manage, or the people within this country will even lack the skills to even manage the business enterprises or the projects that the government will seek to establish to alleviate their living standards. So, in short, or in summary, what I'm saying is that in such country like Kenya, where there is large inequalities in terms of living standard, many people are living below $1 a day, and that is below the United Nations Declaration on Life of the People. It is going to be very difficult for the bottom-up approach to be adapted for the success of the nation, because the people, beside the inequality, they also lack the skills of initiating and managing small-scale businesses, which sometimes require the public awareness and civic education. When we talk about small-scale businesses, we are talking about people who have invested in a small sector and they survive based on that. They can be able to translate or to calculate the profit vis-a-vis the capital and balance as they continue to live. So in summary, when we talk about the bottom-up economy, ladies and gentlemen, I want to be very categorical that anywhere in the world, when you go across the world, you realize that this approach has never succeeded anywhere. There are 3 countries that I've cited as example where their leaders tried to adapt the bottom-up economy. In the Soviet Union, under Bolshevik, after Romanov had been overthrown in around 1900s, they introduced the bottom-up economy, and this economy failed miserably. And this failure will be reversed later on by the leader who took over, that is Mikhail Gorbachev, through the introduction of effective approaches. It never worked in Russia. Number 2, in the Communist Revolution of China under Mao Zedong, he also tried to introduce the bottom-up economy, and it failed until the country began again to embrace different principles under a leader known as, the leader was known as Deng Xiaoping. Another country that has tried the bottom-up model, which failed miserably, was an African country. After the first Pan-African conference that was held in Ghana in 1957, African leaders who met in Ghana chose to go back to their country after discussion, and they were encouraged to go back to their country and draw an economic plan that is purely African. While they argued that they can copy some of the aspects and tenets of European economic model, they encouraged each other to come out with an African economic plan. So while Kenya went for capitalism, that is the sessional paper number 10 of African socialism, the Kenyan version, Tanzania under Julius Nyerere, after he had visited Japan and found an economic policy that had worked very well, he came back to Tanzania and decided to adopt Arusha Declaration. That was in 1967. The Arusha Declaration is highly likened to Ujamaa principle. Otherwise, we can refer it to the bottom-up economic model, which again did not work. So in summary, when we talk about the bottom-up approach, I want to say this in summary. When you look at the advantages and disadvantages of the bottom-up economy, you realize that this is an economic model that can only work in countries that, one, have a better education system. It is an economic model that can work in countries that have established the basics in terms of industrial development. So that when we talk about the advantages of the bottom-up economy, we'll say, number one, it has one advantage of using your resources. Using your resources simply means that the people on the ground, or the people, the common mwananchi, is the one who is actively involved in production. And therefore, since people are already using the available resources to their development, the insight they give, the information they give about what is happening on the ground helps to provide a holistic, comprehensive basis for decision making in the country. That is one advantage of the bottom-up economy. I've said it is advantageous in terms of using your resources. Number two, bottom-up economy is advantageous in boosting the people's morale. Now, when I talk about this, you'll find that since the bottom-up approach acknowledges the insight of the people and the voices of the people on what they need or what needs to be addressed in as far as their welfare is concerned, the people's voices and input can help build and develop a country. It is important because the moment they air their views, the views becomes important in decision making and shaping the country's economic direction. Number three, bottom-up economy is advantageous in terms of flexibility. What do I mean by this? This is what we mean, that when you look at the bottom-up economy, you will realize that a country that uses bottom-up approach such a country is well positioned to adapt to the unpredictable changes or circumstances that occur at any given time. And this can only happen if the leaders of the people are able to know or to understand the problems the people are facing. It does not only rely on the leaders, but also relies on the people. And that's why I'm saying it's flexible. Because as soon as something happens, the people on the ground are very quick to understand and change to the new situation, and hence the economy may not be affected at any point. Take a case study of the pandemic, the corona pandemic. If Kenya or if a country was operating on a bottom-up approach, it would be very easy for people during such a scenario to know what to do, to know the action to take immediately. Because, number one, the government would have invested in the people, and therefore, at the bottom level, we would have established medical facility enough to cater for the sick people. The government would have invested in research at the bottom level and to the people to be able to understand what is needed when such a pandemic hit a country. Number two, the country would not have been affected with the issue of food supply because the people on the ground would have been given an opportunity to invest, and therefore productivity of the country would not have been an issue. Kenya would not have depended on countries like Uganda and Tanzania in terms of food supply. And therefore, even the education approach would have been would have been better handled if the country would have been working under the bottom-up approach. And therefore, when we talk about the advantages of the bottom-up approach, I would say they are very minimal. One, I've talked about using your resources. Two, I've talked about boosting the morale. And three, I've talked about flexibility. On the other hand, when you talk about disadvantages of the bottom-up approach, ladies and gentlemen, these are the one that outweighs the advantages. Like number one, the bottom-up approach lacks cohesion. When we talk about lack of cohesion, what we simply mean is that when decisions are being made at multiple levels, they are likely to create anarchy because every region would appear to command a certain level of production. And in a case where the country is hit by a crisis, every region, looking at our structure, the structure of our country where we have 42 tribes and everybody would want to be defined by his tribe, it will end up in a crisis where those who are producing such a product will claim they are not willing to produce it for the other people. So lack of cohesion may be a factor to watch when you are talking about the bottom-up approach. Number two, lack of experience. Most of the people at the ground are people who do not have experience. And therefore, when you talk about the bottom-up approach, you mean they are the ones who are to be involved in production. And therefore, you realize that there are production at a level that needs technocrats. It means, in summary, the level of quality of products in the country will go down. Hence, we will not be able to compete with first world countries, second world countries, and other developing countries effectively. Number three, ego strife. In a case where the common people on the ground are aware they are the one who are dominating or driving the economy, especially when they are identified based on their ethnic groups, they are likely to be subject to ego. And at this level, it will mean that they will not be able to produce for purposes of national development and instead focus on their personal interest and their community. This is likely to create a crisis in terms of the bottom-up approach. So in summary, I want to finish by saying this. When we talk about the bottom-up approach, we must put in mind, number one, according to the Deputy President, William Samoei Ruto, it's a framework that is anchored on deliberate program that seek to promote investment. However, when you look at how Mr. Ruto presents the bottom-up approach, you realize that his definition of the bottom-up approach may not work considering the understanding of the people in terms of the bottom-up. They believe it is about being given money to do whatever they want. So, according to the Deputy President, William Samoei Ruto, the bottom-up model of economy is a blueprint that targets to promote investment, which is very true. And this investment will focus on ordinary people and empowering them financially to be able to generate taxes to the government. But if you are to empower people and on the other hand increase the taxes, you will not have empowered them. Instead, you would have subdued them even than expected. And therefore, I want to say that the bottom-up approach has very little to do with government and politicians providing goodies to the public. The electorates must be warned that what they expect from the bottom-up approach may not come to pass if they look at it with the perception they have. It will fail the way it failed in Tanzania. It will fail the way it failed in Russia. And it will also fail the way it failed in China under Mao Zedong. Thank you very much, my viewers, for following up on our episode today. And I also want to remind you as I finish that if you are watching our videos for the first time, please give our video a thumb up. And for those who are new to our videos, kindly subscribe to our videos so that next time we are doing such a video, you are able to receive notification on time. Thank you very much.